Hello, thanks so much for the presentation. I wanted to ask you, you've obviously done a lot of work back in Europe, and you've done only one project so far in China, correct? So people in Asia and people in Europe have very different approaches in designing. So what was your biggest concern when you said, okay, we're going to do something that's totally different from our culture? What's the best strategy in coming up with an idea to approach that design project? You know, I mean, where did you start? Did you talk to the clients first, or did you decide to, okay, we'll do this particular strategy first and then show it to the client, or how did you go? And what's the key difference between the two?
In some particular project, or
Like,
in some particular project, or just in general?
just in general between Asia and Europe, what do you think was the key difference?
That's a really good question.
Yes, I know. It's like my favorite question, actually.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, it varies so much, from project to project. But well, our approach is almost always that we really like to work close with the client from the beginning, and also developers. We actually like to get into working with the projects with developers before they actually form anything, program or we like to get in as soon as possible, and then develop it together with them the whole way. What could we add to that?
I'm not super, I think were you referring also to the Chengdu project that we did?
Only one.
Yeah, that was a competition. So we just got a competition brief, and we never left our office in Reykjavik when we were doing that project. We took some Skype meetings with architectural firm in Denmark.
Right.
So
the two other guys, Madsen and Christopher, they were working on a project in China while we were working at Tempinis and Jalan, and that office has a lot of knowledge working with projects in China. And I actually worked with a lot of some projects in China at the moment when I was working there. So we knew, the basic cultural differences and needs. So we knew about the groundwork that we needed to do, but from there we actually just played, trying to figure out a fun way or create a way of making a skyscraper and a residential area. Yeah.
Thanks.
Questions anymore?
I think just to answer a little bit, I think what we learned also from that project is we would need to come the next step.
You need to what, sorry? I didn't hear the last one.
no, I was just saying, I think one of the things that we learned from doing that competition was that we would rather do a competition where, if we would do a competition another time, we would definitely have to come and visit the site. Because this was a kind of a strange thing to do it in this way, not used to do it in this way. And as Christian says, usually we always try to do at least 1 to 2 competitions a year, but we have actually, our practice has developed in that way that we are mostly doing works in collaborations with our client, not so many competitions.
This was also too big.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
150,000 square meters, we're used to 300.
Hi. Can we have a few more landscape pictures of Iceland?
No.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay, my question is, when you had the Lego workshops with the students in Iceland or Denmark, I can't remember, and the students here, you said you used the skyscraper as a basic unit. Is there any reason in particular, or do you just like skyscrapers? I mean, another way, I've seen you do the Legos on the car park lots. Do you plan to use it to explore another scale, like an urban scale?
Actually, we started working with the tower. That was when we took the workshop to Delft in collaboration with the Y Factory. So it was a part of a theme that they were also studying there about most skyscrapers don't give so much other than like symbolic value. Like mainly they are some symbols like of wealth or a status symbol for the company that builds the skyscraper, etc. Maybe it gives some like point of direction in the city, or it gives like the city an iconographic figure on the skyline, but in like the close neighborhood of the skyscraper, it usually doesn't give so much back to the immediate urban fabric. So the idea, like Open the Tower, was to try to see how we could integrate public spaces more with the tower. Can the tower be opened more? Can it be more porous? Can it be more integrated with the near urban fabric? So, and using the Lego, we were just making it really simple and defining with the Lego it has either a closed side or it has what we call an open pixel side where you can see like the knobs on the Lego. So that was.
I feel like with the scale of the skyscraper, even if you try to make it more open to the immediate neighborhood, it will still be lost because a lot of the detail is so high up. What do you think?
Depends on the.
Depends on the context. If you have a lot of skyscraper together, you have like, I mean, you don't have that problem.
But it depends on where you're experiencing the skyscraper from. If you're looking at it from a distance, or if you're actually experiencing the spaces inside or on the outside of the skyscraper, all the way up. So it has many levels to it, I think.
Questions? No? 10 more minutes. Questions? Don't be shy.
We'll send you a link to more landscape pictures from Iceland.
The house that you did with the red bricks and the pitch roof, which is a requirement by the municipality, right? Building bylaw requirements. But they do not dictate the form of the house. Now, I suppose most of the houses in that neighborhood had a very traditional look to it. And yours had a bit more of a modern look to it, right? Was there any issue that arose from this, either from the neighbors or the council, by saying, okay, fine, you're using our materials, the ones we told you to use, but you've come up with a design that doesn't quite conform to its surroundings. So did you face any issues in that?
Actually, we did from the neighbors. They were worried for some time, and the regulations actually, it's not completely the form of the house, of the building, but it's the roof scape. And in certain ways, the form of the building, we just stressed it a little bit, made a cut in it. Always when we are working with, especially in Denmark and Iceland, the restrictions are really, there are really a lot of restrictions. So we try to twist them as much as we can, but always stay inside, the guidelines, like we can, But in that one, it was a neighbor who was a little bit worried, but when we built it, it just disappeared. The municipality were not worried about it. Actually, later on we won, last year, we got the architectural prize of the city for this building, so today there are no worries. But it's true, it's quite different from the traditional ones, but only by playing a little bit with the restrictions and the framework that we had. We could make it quite different than the other ones.
One last question. Anyone from behind? No questions? Oh, okay, there's one. Yasmin?
I was there for the Lego workshop, and I was just wondering, like, if the Lego modules were modified, like in different shapes or different sizes, something more circular, or will it affect how the Lego is being used to understand how to build a building, let's say? Because the shape right now is very square, like too big. But if they were like
With the brick itself.
Yeah. That module, like if Lego would be a different shape, will it affect how it's being used in like education?
Yeah.
How so?
I think like the main point with those Lego workshops, at least the way we started them, was to put focus on the dialogue between the students. So it was actually quite helpful that you have pretty much of constraints. Like it's not easy to make organic forms with a brick, with a rectangular brick, but so I don't think it would matter really much. Like the good thing with the bricks as they are, like they are today, or just the basic bricks that we're using, they are like these old childhood friends. Like you immediately get into the mode of playing, which we think is important. And that's why we're, for example, not using some techno Lego or some variations or new types of Lego.
Just want to add to it that we have to bear in mind that a Lego is just a material, a media which is really interesting and good to use to communicate architecture. So we think it's really sufficient to use it in the architecture schools or studying or teaching architecture. But we have to be careful, that it's not the Lego who doesn't. It's not because of the Lego that the projects are nice from the workshop this weekend. It's because you talked about it and you built it. So it's just a brick. It's just a media. So we have to bear that in mind. It's but it's effective. It gets you playing, gets you creative, and you actually just automatically become really innovative. So as you saw. No.
One last question.
Thank you for sharing. Can you tell us a bit more about the car parking lot project? Because we're talking about, you guys were talking about a permanent structure, something that will replace the parking lot for a long time. How willing were the, what did the brief look like, and how willing were the municipality willing to push regulations, planning guidelines for you guys? Could you tell us a bit more about that?
That project actually is an experimental project for the city, because in the planning or the master plan for the whole Reykjavik city, they want to make the city more dense. Like Christian explained, that the city should not expand; it should be made denser towards the center of the city. And but we actually we didn't have any brief. We were just we're handed a project, come up with some solutions for the city. And so we actually chose to work with parking because we thought it was interesting to use to make the city more dense. So like you said, making the green areas more lively, and the gray areas in the city more lively and more green, instead of taking more of the greener areas. So that's what it was our brief. So add to it.
Yeah, it's. I don't know how much you know about Reykjavik and Iceland, but there was an interesting thing that there's one interesting thing that we heat our houses with hot water. There's a lot of hot water on the ground, so we only need to dig down to get the water up. So it's fairly cheap for us to heat our houses. And we get a lot of electricity as well, because we can harvest the waterfalls, the rivers, etc. So we are actually trying to, in a crazy project, trying to export that electricity through a cable under the Atlantic Ocean. And although I have my doubts about that. But one thing we are doing, like 100 years ago, we heated our houses with coal. We imported coal to heat houses. If you say to somebody today that we are heating our houses with coal in Iceland, he would think like, that's crazy. And I think in 20, 30 years, that we are not still going to be importing oil and gasoline for our transport systems. It's going to be completely changed to electricity. And that's just one thing. And I think also, so I think big changes are possible. And the privately owned car, like in Iceland, I think the average is 2 cars per person that you have. I don't know what it is here in Malaysia, but what? 1 out of 4, yeah. You see, so it's crazy. There's a crazy car culture in Iceland. Like, if we want to make our cities more lively, more pedestrian friendly, and more walkable, etc. Like in Paris, we are starting to, like, you can only enter the city center every other day if you have an even number on your car. If you have an odd number, you have, you know, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, etc. So these changes are coming.
Would you say if the transport system was subdivided into different layers, where you have underground, maybe delivery trucks, and then cars, and then maybe cyclists, and then pedestrian sort of layers, would you say that would tackle this kind of problems where you have really dense city? Like how you suggested, it's all built of towers. If you place towers next to a tower, it's going to create a lot of interstitial spaces in between. Would you suggest a layered city would be better choice?
That's maybe a bit long discussion to go out into and difficult. I'm not sure if I have the answer. But like our statement is, with the parking project is that obviously like the rapid urbanization that started to happen like in the 40s, 50s came along hand in hand with the appearance of the privately owned car. So our cities are enormously like shaped and have developed around the car. And if the car is only an in-between system, I think new modes of transportation, like the car is going to be like the CD, like the video tape. Then we have all the spaces within the city which are tied up with this 2.5 times 5 meter module. So this was just like a statement to see we should maybe start to rethink what we can do with these spaces. Not only for, you know, modular housing that we are suggesting, just we have a lot of spaces that could be turned from, you know, grey asphalted spaces, repurposed and reclaim the parking areas.
Good luck.
No more questions? Alright, that marks the end of our Q&A and the talk.